Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Ideas. I am Madhu and my co host is Abhinav Raji. We are lifelong learners and wanted to unearth the secret sauce of successful people across the globe and package it up to the community. We firmly believe each episode will inspire you to find your passion and follow your dreams.
Our guest today is the national head of engagement at C2 Angels. He's also an entrepreneur, a TV presenter, a podcast host, wedding singer, and add to the list, a mentor as well. He's worked extensively in sales, marketing, digital, startups, and corporates. He's built and grown several businesses, both as an employee and as an owner and a founder. This Inspiring Idea podcast is for anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur but not sure how to build a successful startup. Well, you'll get all your answers today. We are so excited to have Brendan Burns in our show. Welcome, Brendan. How are you going today?
I'm good, thank you, Abhi and Madhu. Great to be here.
Absolutely, mate. I have to start with this. To be honest, I remember it was like November, December 2019, and I reached out to you for a volunteering work on content writing because I wanted to learn the tricks on how to write, right? And I must admit I was very nervous because you are a superstar already, and and I'm not joking. And you were already a superstar, and I did not even expect a reply from you, and I got a reply almost instantly, and then we made very strong connections, and then the friendship really blossoms well. And I was telling Abhi, mate, there is every chance, and this guy is a professional podcaster, there's every chance that in our episode we might get interviewed rather than we interviewing him.
Yeah.
So such is the presence of Brandon Burns. So which is quite awesome because you generally radiate a lot of energy, positivity, all that, right? So how are you so
Yep.
magnetic, and how did you become a power collaborator?
Yeah, great question. Oh, and look, to give the listener and the viewer of your show and episode some context, Madhu, you're spot on there. So you reached out to me and made an overture, I think, over 12 months ago. And when we were working on another project, I had a real need for around 4 to 5 people to assist with content writing of our podcast episodes. And the work you did was brilliant, mate. And you continue to do that at the new role in business I'm in. So it's been fantastic. To answer your question around what I think would make me so magnetic, I don't want to sound arrogant here, but my background as a child was in performing. So when I was 15, I stayed with a host family in Melbourne, and I filmed a television show on Channel 10 with 17 other children for 6 months.
Wow.
And we had a tutor on set, so we had a classroom set up on the lot, and then we'd film our episodes during the day, and then we'd come home on the weekends. And so from a really early age, even before that, I'd had a lot of exposure to performing in a live environment, both through singing and acting and being in front of an audience. And I really do think that that's contributed to my ability to attempt to resonate with as many different types of people as possible.
All
But
right.
one thing I learned in business was the concept of assuming rapport. So everyone talks about how we try to build rapport, and we do that in a frictionless manner online on LinkedIn and direct message. But we also have to do it in person, or a little less so now, but it's still a very important part of building relationships.
Yeah.
And I learned pretty quickly that rather than wanting to try and build rapport with someone, I would just assume that we have it already.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing how having that change in mindset and assuming that you're going to get along with someone before you do,
Yeah.
it's amazing how it puts you in a frame of mind that
Yeah.
actually gets you to having rapport a lot easier than you would
Yeah.
anticipate.
And to me, it's exactly, I completely agree with you. To me, it's exactly the difference between making a rapport and making a connection. Rapport is just the first level, and making a connection is when you are so empathetic with that person or individual. You're going to work on and accept that individual as your teammate. You're going to work with him for, say, 5 years, 10 years together. And how are you going to react? And it's just like a family. I quite like what you're saying there. And what
First, I was just going to say one other thing there is first step there is obviously you'll gravitate to people that are like you and you'll assume rapport and it'll work. The next challenge I've faced and a lot of other people will face is what about when you meet someone that's not like you and you can't get that rapport initially? How do you then overcome understanding how to build it with someone that might take a little longer? And that's always been a challenge for me and something I've had to really default to listening.
Yeah,
with that
that's a good
person.
difference that you're making in terms of people that you wanted to work versus people who normally not natural in terms of working with you. So do you have any suggestions for the audience and listeners here for how to improve their collaborating skills and networking skills? I know for some people they're introverts, and for some people they're total extroverts, and they're so magnetic, like like you and many people.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
how do you give a general advice for people across all cohorts?
Yep. Well, I mean, first piece of advice would be it's not for everyone, but if you have entertained a sales role or if someone has been in a sales environment, that's probably the quickest and the most effective way to learn how to handle building a relationship with someone that doesn't necessarily want to have one initially. It's a bit like dating, Madhu. Just because the girl says no on the first date doesn't mean it's
Doesn't mean it's a
over.
no.
But
I get it.
beyond that,
Yeah.
beyond that, I would say that it goes without saying that if you were to make it about them. So I know that's a broad statement, making everything about the other person instead of talking about yourself.
Yeah.
But really, really listening intently at the beginning of the interaction. And I think, look, I'm not an expert, but if you were to look into it, there's probably 4 key personality types that exist in the world. Excluding some other categories that are a bit out there. And they will have tells and things about them that attract them to when they interact with someone.
Yeah.
And so it's more so just about listening to them, but then listening to yourself around how you begin to interact differently. But it's a challenge. Like I don't cut through with everyone. I know that, but the important thing is when building a relationship with someone that it's a bit of a challenge, you don't give up. So that plays into the concept we talked about around you gravitate to people you like and that are similar to you, but you have to develop the ability to be able to do that with people who aren't necessarily similar to you. And the important thing is to have a bit of resilience and not give up. So keep at it, keep trying, and just showing up and being present and showing that you're willing to make that effort is quite often the difference between it actually falling into place in the relationship.
Beautiful. Excellent, man.
There
Excellent.
I'm ranting again, mate. I told you before this episode, you got to stop me.
Nah, because
Crap,
these are gold nuggets, buddy. These are gold nuggets. Trust me.
Thank you.
So, Brandon, you have a lot of experience working with corporates and entrepreneurs. Can you walk us through a typical day in your life working at C2 Angels?
Yeah, sure. Well, can I give you a day in the life where it begins at home before I get to C2 Angels? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Go for it.
Just to give context, because having had a young family, which I'm sure you guys can relate to, it's forced me to develop an appreciation and a better understanding of time management. Now, if my wife was listening to this, she'd still probably say that I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to time management compared to her. But I must admit, from having a young family and having to, navigate incorporating that into the day along with work, it's made me more time efficient. So my day usually starts, pre-COVID. So we're recording this during stage 3, potentially 4 restrictions. But pre-COVID, my day would exist of getting up at 5 a.m. and I'd obviously jump in the shower first thing and then get changed for the day, pack my lunch and head off to work at C2. But during COVID, I've actually been trying to be a bit more present in the morning and helping with the kids.
Yeah.
So my son Baxter, my oldest, has returned to school, which is great. So I try to alternate days being able to take him to school because that's something I couldn't do pre-COVID restrictions. And then I help out with the breakfast for my 3 daughters because my wife would usually still be getting up because she's got the night shift because our little baby still gets up during the night.
Beautiful.
So it's a bit of a haze. And as you guys know, when you've got a newborn, it just feels like you've got jet lag 24/7.
Yeah.
But that'll then get me to the office at C2 or virtually by about 7:30 a.m. And then I find personally, and people in my team are at their most creative at the start of the day. So 7:30 to 8:30 will often be an informal meeting with myself, Alany Knight and Peter Terrell, our creative kind of mastermind group at C2 Angels. And that's the time where we actually spend getting all of our creative juices out and updating and finding where we can land on a project that we're incubating.
Yeah.
And then beyond there, it's into meetings with either a creative team that's executing. So we've got a design and development team in-house that actually brings to life the brands of our startups in-house
Mm-hmm.
and also works with external startups that need assistance. And then I'll meet with our Angels wider team. So we've got a sales team that works every day on bringing in capital to fund our startup ventures.
Yeah.
And then we've got a studio in-house, which we work with. We've got an in-house director, producer, John Balaz, who executes our podcasts and vodcasts. And then the afternoon's deliberately left open for either up to one interview or sales appointment. And the rest of that time spent trying to find at least 2 45-minute chunks to spend on progressing projects internally.
Yeah.
But I try to get out of the office around 4 p.m. because I live in Geelong.
Yeah.
So I give myself an hour and a bit to get home.
Yeah.
Because I know that once I walk through the door, I can't physically pick up work and do it sporadically.
Yeah.
Until about 7 p.m. It's go time with bed, bath, brushing your teeth.
Yeah. You got to multitask there. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. But
well done.
yeah, so I don't want to make myself sound like super dad because my wife does most of the work. But it's just amazing how having kids, guys, has given a better understanding of managing time.
Mate, I mean,
crazy.
you're saying that you're not a super dad, but the way that you explained your day, it's definitely
Yes.
sounds like you are a super dad, indeed. And not only that, and you are a superstar in the work as well. And it's funny because you mentioned the two other guys like Eleni and Peter have written articles about them, but not about you. Maybe this is the one I'm going to write.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's deep dive into the understanding of the entrepreneurship. Having listened to your typical day, and your job is to basically meet entrepreneurs left, right, and center. So if there is an opportunity for you to listen to some of their stories, and for them it looks like a scary thing, for some of them it looks so uncomfortable. So for a potential startup founder who has got an idea, but what would your advice to them be in terms of their mindset? Now let's talk about the mindset. So that plays a huge part here.
Yeah. Well, I will preface this by saying that Australians on the whole are actually quite risk averse. They're quite conservative. So it's difficult in some regards to really help maintain and build the confidence of an Australian founder, even though we live in a first world country.
Yeah.
But one thing I've noticed in particular with immigrants to Australia, and in particular people who immigrate from India, they're incredibly entrepreneurial already. So I would say that people like yourself, Abi, and others who come here as an entrepreneur from India, we've actually got a lot to learn from, because in the short time that I've been exposed to the startup ecosystem, there's a huge, healthy immigrant contingent of entrepreneurs, and almost to the point where you start to realize that it's in their blood.
Yeah.
And sometimes Australian founders, you'd probably say it's not in their blood as much. So there is work and support that has to go in to supporting a founder.
Yeah.
From an advice perspective and what to do first, before I joined C2 Angels, I worked at an incubator.
Yep.
And I would say an absolute first step is to find either a co-working space or a startup incubator that exists close to you.
Yep.
And become part of that community, because it's there that you'll find most of the things an early stage startup needs in the way of a mentor, a coach, maybe an investor, your first customer, a co-founder, and like-minded people.
Yep.
It is difficult to be able to filter advice because you're going to be hit with so much good and really bad advice.
Yeah.
But being in a community like that, you'll have people you can bounce off that aren't just trying to sell you something. They're actually in the same position as you.
Yeah.
So find your tribe, find your like-minded people. And then if I was to answer that question around where C2 Angels fits into the equation,
Yeah.
well, because we're a private equity firm and we are in the business of raising capital and raising money for ventures and businesses and developments, we've really taken the responsibility of being the destination that can get more people into raising money for startups. So we looked at the whole ecosystem in Australia and we thought, where do we fit?
Yeah.
And because we're really good at raising money, we said, well, let's go and lead the way. Let's take the responsibility to get more people becoming an angel investor? Because I'll share a stat with you. So in Australia, the amount of investment made into early stage startups per capita is around 68 cents. In America, it's around $12.
Massive
so you can
difference.
see that,
Massive difference.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, less people here, obviously, in less of a pool, but that just shows that there's a glaring gap. There's a huge problem. There's a big hole when it comes to early stage funding for founders. So we want more people who are considering becoming an angel investor, or maybe even have started on their journey but really don't know how to do it properly, to come and learn how to do it with us, because we've obviously got we've got the tools and the education to show people how to do it.
Yeah.
And we're experts at it. We know exactly how it can be done. And we think if we get more people becoming angel investors, that'll solve the problem for founders who start on their journey, Madhu, and don't know how to get that first round of funding to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, I think I exactly understand your point as well. I've been listening to all your podcasts. I've been writing as well. So the constant message that you and the people that you interview give is around think globally. Now, Australia might be a smaller market. You got to think globally and make an idea that is more servicing the masses, not just for Australia. So in that way, you are increasing your chances of getting an investment in your idea, and you can make it to fruition as well. So I know that you mentioned there's something called a checklist or something that you have. Do you want to talk about the C2 Angels checklist, or do you want to talk about anything in general that people can go into the internet, download, and avoid all the noises around the contents that are there in the world today?
I would say, right, if you are an aspiring individual who wants to get in the game of startups and make a difference, but you don't want to be the founder, or maybe you're already a founder and your time is tied up with growing your business, but you really have an appreciation for startups and the importance of investing, and you want to do a better job of being able to invest in other people's businesses. If you want to get into the game and do a better job of investing as an angel, I would say the best thing you can do is contact C2 Angels. So we're c2angels.com. And I would book a angel investor discovery call, because that's a 25-minute call, which you'll actually find out. You'll be able to find out yourself if you are matched and you're right for being an angel investor or not. And it's probably a good way to understand if it's for you or not, because we really don't focus on the fluffy stuff around getting people together and maybe making an investment here and there and just doing some networking.
You go straight to the point.
Yeah, we want people who actually want to get in the game and make a difference, because like I said before, in Melbourne alone, there's a lack of around $40 million every year that just doesn't exist, that needs to fund startups. Now, obviously, we've all heard of Afterpay and Canva and Atlassian, but where's the next one coming from? And how did they get to where they are now? Someone invested in them at an early stage. Someone put in 20 grand. Someone put in 50 grand. Someone believed in their early stage concept and said, here's $100,000. Go do the development you need to do. Go validate your idea. Go get your first customer. Go pay yourself a subsidized wage so that you don't go crazy and that you can stick at it. Someone believed in them. And that person ordinarily is probably experiencing a 30 to 40 to 50x return right now. And we don't even know what their name is, but that person exists and they play an important role in the process. And that we want more of those people. So we need to show people how to be that person in the equation, because everyone knows who the rock star founder is. Everyone knows who the venture capital firm is. Everyone knows maybe who the podcaster is, but no one knows who the angel investor is. But their role is arguably the most important, because if they didn't believe in that business and that founder at the beginning, nothing else would have happened.
Beautiful point. Beautiful. Thank you so much on that.
That's so true. And I think you gave an example of Canva, and I've seen that they've grown a lot in the last couple of years. And that goes to my next question that I'm sure you've seen a lot of entrepreneurs. So which one has influenced you the most and why?
Great question, Avi. I am a bit of a patriot at heart, so I do gravitate to Melanie Perkins from Canva. I would say that she's particularly important to reference because I've spoken and interviewed many people. Like I've interviewed a guy in Silicon Valley 2 weeks ago who interviewed her. And I said to him, I said, mate, what is it about her and her business? And he said, well, to be honest, dealing with her team and dealing with her people, when I went through the process of securing her as a guest, talking to her, he said it blew his mind. It was exceptional. He said that indicated to me that business in particular has extremely strong leadership and excellent culture, because every touch point and person that he dealt with in the process was consistent, bought in, and of the same belief and nature. And that told him that business has something special going on over there. On a personal level, I like the entrepreneurs who are less sexy. So the ones that maybe are in an industry or a business that's pretty boring and plain and not very marketable, but have actually had huge success from following a playbook and following principles. And often they're the people that don't get served up in your LinkedIn feed straight away. But they're the people that you quickly learn and hear through other people that are actually doing well. And that's a challenge, as we all know, because we get served up so many people online that tell us they're a guru and they've had huge success.
Yeah.
So I would say Melanie Perkins for sure, because it's just such an amazing business, and to see how many times she had to pitch her business and how many times she had to change her deck and the process she went through to raise, but also just to see the problem she's solving. Like when you break it down, making graphic design accessible for everyone and empowering people to have better design and timing with Instagram and social media taking off, it's been amazing to watch.
Absolutely amazing, and can't agree more, man. That leaves us to another question. You have seen many failures in the entrepreneurship world. I've seen your interviews as well. I've written articles around it. So what resonated you the most, or the biggest ever failure which you felt in your journey so far?
Well, so business-wise, my biggest failure was I left a highly powered sales and marketing position at a company, and naively thought that I can do this. I can start a digital agency, and I know heaps of people, so I can get some clients initially, and the rest will work itself out. And I quickly realized that by starting a business based upon my network alone was good, but it wasn't enough. And I quickly fell into the trap of being a Me Too agency. So I did a little bit of web design. I did a little bit of SEO. I did a little bit of Google AdWords, but I wasn't really good at any of them. And quickly realized that reputation and network alone wasn't going to hang on to my clients. So my learning from that wrapping up that business was to then pivot to doing something more niched, and having the courage to realize that going into a niche category is not going to mean you'll make less or you'll have less opportunity. You've just got to do more work on yourself to be an expert and the leader in that niche. So that's probably my biggest mistake business-wise. I reckon one of my biggest, I wouldn't say mistake, but challenges in my personal life would be that when I was 17, I went on the first season of Australian Idol.
Oh, beautiful.
And I got all the way to the semi-finals, and I was alongside Guy Sebastian and Shannon Knoll. And
oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
Well, it was a long time ago, 2003. But I was 17 and I'd spent my life and career working in film and television. And because I'd worked so much up until that age, I hadn't really developed my craft because I hadn't needed to, because I was being booked for film and television and getting work. And I didn't have an appreciation for the work that goes into really developing your craft as a method actor, and also as a robust kind of musical theatre performer. And potentially I may have missed an opportunity not knowing what I know now at a younger age to really take the profession seriously.
Yeah.
It's given me a lot of joy, having learnt and worked as a singer and an actor, to the point where I've got a wedding band on the weekend. So you guys
Yeah.
mentioned wedding singer at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
So I've got a creative outlet on a weekend, which is a brilliant balance.
Yep.
But one regret would be that I didn't respect the craft early enough
Yep.
to really delve deeper into developing it, because that industry in particular does unfortunately have a bit of a time expiry on age. And obviously I don't have the luxury as I did, 10, 15 years ago to really go hard at trying to be an actor. So
I can
it would
imagine that
be-
for sure. I can
Yeah.
I can 100% imagine what you're talking about. I think identification of a skill early on in their life will eventually make people reach their success early. So that leaves us to the next question. Did someone point you that mistake, or was it a a late realization? Meaning that, did you have any mentors, and what is the role of a mentor?
Yeah. Well, I'm still very early on my journey of learning and developing all of this, right? But I would say my best mentor I found has always come from either a sounding board with my wife or from reading. I'd love to be able to say to you guys and to your audience and to your listeners that I have 2 or 3 go-to mentors that are people. Obviously it goes without saying that my manager, or the managing director of C2, Peter Terrell, who I came to C2 to work with and for,
Yep.
is definitely a mentor. And that, if you can find that, and it's very difficult, but if you can find that in your manager and you can get to a level where you can collaborate, it is brilliant, because being able to collaborate with someone who oversees the leadership and the vision of the overall business is a real luxury.
Yep.
So that's definitely one point. But I would say I read over the Christmas holidays Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Your listeners would know this book. It's been around since the 1940s. And it challenged me to set a 10-year goal for myself and my family. And so I did that. And so what that's done is it's given me a bit more comfort around where I am now and what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, but also having something locked in 10 years to where I'm working towards being. And so the book really has been a mentor for me, I would say.
I think there are many people saying that. I recently was listening to Jay Shetty interviewing Damon John. He was exactly the same, saying the same thing. Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, it stands the test of time. I mean, it forces you to have, it forces you to do the exercise that you guys would know around having a vision board. It forces you to do the exercise of trying to indoctrinate your subconscious mind into your conscious. So it forces you to do exercises around, repeatedly verbalizing what you want. So there's a lot of principles and exercises in that book that are like you can deploy in your life.
Yeah.
So it's the type of book that you deliberately would reread chapters, or you would go back to do an exercise. It's more of a manual than
validate your
book.
thoughts every now and then, and see the applicability of it. And so last thoughts on the mentoring around if I'm a founder or an aspiring entrepreneur. So how do I find my mentor, and is there any specific way to do it?
Well, it's easier now because you'll find people on LinkedIn that have the title in their job title description of what they do.
Do you trust all of them?
Clearly not. However, I'll give you an example, right? Last year, I identified personally that I wanted to secure 5 opportunities to speak in public. So either paid or non-paid in public. And I actually thought, you know what? I'm actually going to put this out there to the network. So I did a post on LinkedIn and I said, I'm looking to secure, more public speaking this year. I've set a goal for myself. Who can help me? And then within 4 weeks, I presented to a Masters of Engineering class at Deakin University. And I took a photo of me and the lecturer and the students. the 100 students standing there with their hands up. And I said, the universe delivers. And I would say that the idea there would be make it known to your network, but do it on LinkedIn as well. Do a post and say, I want someone to. Can someone recommend me?
Beautiful.
I'd love a mentor who can.
Beautiful.
Like, why not? That's powerful.
Mm.
And if
And
someone
then making it more
Really good.
specific.
yeah.
So one of the questions which is very popular gets raised in so many of the startup forums is that how do you find a mentor in a specific industry? Like you want to start a food truck business or whatever, like a lot of mentors, but how do you reach out to the one that can actually help you?
So let's say, for example, you want to find a mentor in the food truck business. I would challenge that person to think, rather than finding someone who's had success growing, scaling, and exiting a food truck business, what other businesses are similar to a food truck business? Or what other businesses service the same customer? So we talk about in sales, when we're trying to generate referrals, who's got our customer before us? So if we were to look at the example of a catering business, they're dealing with customers who buy the food, but they're also dealing with customers who would employ them to cater their events. And at an event, you've got an event manager who's going to be working with providers who provide everything from the marquee to the staging to the entertainment to the security to the guests. So where am I going with this? I'm trying to help people join the dots quickly to think you just don't need a mentor for food truck business because they need to be a food truck person. You could find someone who's working in with a similar customer.
Got it.
Right, okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense. I hope that does.
It does. It
Yeah,
does.
absolutely. So I think we need to talk about our current circumstances because of COVID. There's a huge impact on jobs, on small business and economy. What advice do you have for working professionals and startups in the current circumstances?
Well, everyone's circumstance is different. So it goes without saying, get somewhere where you can get a steady internet connection and not be interrupted by the kids.
Yeah.
But my personal view, guys, and you would attest to this, is if you've got an entrepreneurial bone in your body, just one, then you should at least be doing something weekly that is contributing to getting that going. Like Madhu, I know how hard you work in a full-time capacity.
Thank you, man.
But then ordinarily, some people like you wouldn't do endeavors like this. You're starting a podcast. You've probably got business interests. You're probably collaborating with others. You're assisting other people. You might be mentoring a person or two. What other ways are you giving back or getting involved so that you can create yourself a second and third income stream? So, it's been a challenge for me that I haven't had my secondary income stream of my wedding band because weddings have been on hold during coronavirus. So I can't actually go and sing at someone's wedding because you can't have more than 5 people there. So that provides a challenge for me. And I would say the best example in that scenario is I've got a friend who owns about 4 venues called Piano Bar. And they're obviously a huge business that relies upon clientele coming in physically and buying food and drink and having a sing-along and having a good time. So all they've been able to do during these times is pivot to being an experience business rather than a hospitality business. And they've been streaming live to Facebook every night, a 2-hour show with a variety of performers. And they've introduced the ability to have a virtual tip jar into the Facebook page.
Yeah.
So people can tip when they request a song. But they've focused on giving an optimal experience to their audience virtually, knowing that when we come out of this, they'll have even more loyal and more engaged customers who will frequent their business and beyond.
I think this will create a recall value as well. And they will be the first one to be remembered once we come out of COVID.
So there's an example, isn't it, during COVID where a business has prioritized absolutely loving and taking care of their existing customers, getting to know them intimately, finding out what they love, what they hate, making a real effort one-for-one to improve their experience, not worrying about new customers, just do everything you can to make that existing customer not leave. Don't go anywhere. Get to know them more and more, and take the opportunity to learn what would be an optimal experience for them ongoing.
I think we can go on and on with examples of people and the businesses who are trying to innovate in this pandemic time. And Zoom is another example that I can definitely think of. And we have never thought about Zoom and its skyrocketing growth without the pandemic, to be honest. And I also see some of the trends around robotics and AI getting an eye on, especially now. Are there any other trends that you are also seeing from your interactions with other entrepreneurs?
Yes. So as I was saying, the opportunities now really come down to you, the founder, and it starts with you. So a great example would be in a pandemic, obviously Uber Eats, Deliveroo, Menulog, they're all going to be up on business, and they're all going to be delivering food in plastic containers. One question you could ask yourself in your experience when you order your Uber Eats is, where does all the additional plastic containers go now? How do we all of a sudden have more space to recycle and get rid of this abundance of plastic containers from our food?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's a where could we take an opportunity to make that a better experience? How can we capitalize on that? What business could we start out of the fact that we have an abundance now and know where to put it, and it's bad for the environment?
Yeah.
Who can take advantage the quickest of that problem? Another would be, I don't know if you've seen recently, but the Zoom backgrounds that people use are pretty crap. And it gets a bit annoying when you move your head and you see this space behind. Who's coming up with a solution to make a Zoom background for yourself quickly and easily? Or who's come up with a solution to have a really cool, engaging background beyond what's available right now? Who can do that for businesses and help them advertise themselves better? Who's thinking of that?
Yeah, Teams, definitely Microsoft Teams is doing it, to be honest. And they've got some virtual background or a classroom where, they've got people who can sit together in a room and they'll be talking. So it gets that feel. And I'm so excited with Microsoft Teams as well, to be honest.
Well, there you go. But just another example of see how that just starts with you, the founder. So what's happening right now, what's trending, look to your own experience. Everyone's is different, but you're all experiencing interactions with products and services on a daily basis where we have a subpar experience. Not everything we do is pleasurable. A lot of it is painful, annoying, and not to the standard we'd like. So who's doing work now in improving the ability for voice commands and voice technology? Siri's no good. It's shocking, right? But who's working in that space, or who's got a solution that can improve people's ability to interact better in that manner? Beautiful. All these things are happening as a result of where we are now. But your experience is different to mine. But don't worry about having to come up with an idea that's hugely scalable and will lead to billions in revenue.
Yeah.
Just solve a problem that exists in your day-to-day life. It's the quickest way to validate if something exists. And that's what Canva did. They realized that not everyone has Adobe Illustrator, and not everyone has InDesign, and not everyone knows how to design amazing graphics.
Yeah.
Everything comes up with a cost too, to be honest.
There you go. Start small, take away the pain. Where you've stopped is when you've watched an episode of Shark Tank and you thought, wow, that's all too complicated. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be. Now, we're entering uncharted territory. No one's doing what we're doing. No one's putting their hand up and saying, we'll give you the playbook. We'll show you how to be an angel investor. So if anyone listening is considering becoming an angel but doesn't know how, go to c2angels.com. That's c2angels.com and book a discovery call with our team today. 25 minutes, you'll find out if angel investing is for you or not. And wouldn't you feel better getting a yes or a no than not being sure either way? So that's what I'd recommend. Do that. At least you'll know if you're a good fit to be an angel investor or not.
Lovely answer. Right. Thank you so much for being with us, Brandon.